Welcome to The Sober Effect, a show that looks at the positives of sobriety, the dangers of alcohol, and the many people who are affected by it. I'm Kate.
And I'm Steph. The ripple effect of alcohol is far-reaching, and those are the stories you'll hear on The Sober Effect.
The Sober Effect, the Sober Effect, the Sober Effect,
Right, Steph, we're going to pick up again, and we are currently at month 6 in our year of sobriety. So what happened to you in month 6? Can you remember?
Only thing I could say about month 6 is that I was really feeling stable on my feet. I felt really confident in my decision to not drink anymore. And I also felt really confident in the new coping skills, because by month 6, my anxiety was long gone. My anxiety attacks were gone by day 60.
Amazing.
And it was a gradual exit. And it wasn't like one day I was like, oh, it was literally like one day I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't had an anxiety attack in a while. I mean, that's kind of how it
Amazing.
evolved. So by month 6, I'm just like, I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really confident. I know what to do now when things come up. You know, I've developed that toolkit that we talk about. And it was summer, which it was kind of a big deal too.
Lovely.
And I'm kind of glad I started in December, because summer's when I would drink a lot. Like that, I love day drinking. And so being able to be outside. So that was it was a different summer than summers past, but it was nice. You know, it was much more kind of like the vacation thing. It was way more relaxing instead of waking up the next day like, what happened yesterday? I don't even remember going to bed. Was the sun still up when I went to bed? Like, just crazy thoughts that I would normally have in the summer.
I started to develop habits by month 6. So I was going to bed earlier. Getting ready for bed became really enjoyable. And I was realizing I've got these habits now. I want to be in bed by sort of 9:30 or 10, which made me feel a bit old, but I loved it. And I don't care at all anymore about what anyone thinks. And I was waking up really refreshed, having had 10 hours sleep, getting up. And I was noticing that my life, the patterns in my life were changing. My body was getting used to it. It was saying, this is Kate now. Kate goes to bed early. She brushes her teeth. She washes her face. She puts nice face cream on. She ties her hair up and she goes to bed in silk pajamas and clean sheets. And it was kind of going, I can relax a bit. There's no trauma coming. There's no drama coming. There's no accidents or bruises or big arguments. And that guilt and shame were really, really kind of in the distance by then. And I started talking quite openly. And actually, month 7 was the first time I watched some of that video from the night before. I watched probably 10 seconds of it the next day, and I couldn't watch it. It took me until 7 months to watch it. And even then I didn't watch all of it, because it's about 5-6 minutes long. And I watched a bit and I had to turn it off, because I thought, okay, I've watched enough. And I don't know why, it just made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. But I did watch some and I shared some of it. And by this time, I was really talking a lot on social media about things that had happened to me that I never thought I would share. I never thought I would talk about openly. And I felt really comfortable about it, because I now had this confidence and I was secure in who I was. No one's going to pull me down. No one can say, do you remember? Or, any of that stuff. So I have this newfound strength and confidence that I can start talking about things, because I don't feel like anyone can attack me or make me feel guilty anymore. And I realized it was helping others. So I was really growing and starting to become a sober person who's got real experiences to talk about, who's reliable, who will always turn up. And, it's things like that I really started to feel I was becoming me, really, around that time.
Yeah, exactly the same. In month 7 leading into 8, my confidence in myself, I trusted myself for the first time, because I knew I was in my right mind. I knew I wasn't either drunk or hungover. And so there comes this new trust in what you're saying, and that you'll never go back and be like, oh, I didn't mean that. I too started to be a lot more vocal. I started making reels, because I found that I kind of was reverting back to who I was before I was a drinker at 14, like that inner child, that little girl and what she loved, she started rearing her head and was like, remember when you used to like write plays for the whole neighborhood and we would get together? And so
I used to do that, Steph.
did you?
Yeah.
We should write
And-
like a script and like
oh
do
my God,
something
we
fun.
should. And we used to charge them 5p and they'd come in and sit down and we'd put on the performance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so sweet, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's just like things like that coming back that I didn't think about for years. Because when you're a drinker, you're being an adult, right? Drinking's like, I'm an adult now. I don't do the little
Sophisticated.
kid. Yeah. But now I started realizing that I could still tap into that joy that I felt as a kid, as an adult. Like there's adult ways of doing things that still bring you that same joy that you feel as a child. And so it was 7 into 8 where I started my blog and started podcasting, because it all kind of tied into that inner child and like fed that joy that I was.
And curiosity, I guess, because we lose that, don't we? When we're not interested in anything other than drinking in the evening, whether that's with friends at home, you know, whatever, you're not curious about learning more and carrying on learning. And actually humans need that in their life. They need to keep learning. It's just natural. So that's, you kind of got that back.
Yeah. And challenging yourself, right? Challenging yourself with trying something new and putting yourself out there and not being scared. I always thought confidence came from alcohol, but really I've gained more confidence in my sobriety because once again, I learned to trust myself. I trusted my actions, my words, and all of that. So yeah, month 7th, leading into 8, that's where I was taking my confidence out for a spin.
Oh, I love it. And then you asked me on your podcast, which was a result, because we're here because of it, aren't we?
Yeah.
So month 8, I started to really hate alcohol. I mean, I didn't exactly love it before, but I started to get angry about how it had been sold to me. I've always blamed myself for my drinking and my level of drinking and the way that I felt about myself. But I think I started to realize that I'd sort of been tricked.
Yeah.
And I looked at my daughter and my son and I thought, it's really hard to navigate a life without alcohol. It is everywhere. All of these awful reels where there are people jumping into wine glasses or saying, you know, oh, pick me up. This is what I need. As long as I've got this, make your own dinner. Like, why is that funny? Joking about the fact that you've had a glass of wine at 4 o'clock and now the kids can make their own dinner. I don't find anything funny about that. I didn't find things like that funny when I was drinking, if I'm honest, because it was too close to home. And I thought, why are you saying that? Why are you making?
Unfortunately, I was one of those people that made reels like that. Like once again, I use humor. And
but why were you trying to? If you said this is funny and fun, then it's not bad and I can carry on doing it. Is that why you did it?
Yeah. And then it also spoke to basically like mommy wine culture. It spoke to all those other moms. Like I've always drank. I started drinking at 14 to fit in with the people that used to make fun of me. I converted to do what they were doing so I could be a part of it. So same thing, that just morphed into mommy wine culture. That's what all these like seem to have their shit together moms were doing, right? They were drinking and so if I could post a reel that was funny about drinking, they would find me funny and endearing and want to hang out with me. It was shit like that I was caught up in. It's awful. I got mad too, but it was way earlier than month 8 that I got mad at alcohol.
I got mad about alcohol, but I got really angry when I saw adverts. When I see it in the supermarket, when I see bottles of wine under the back to school logo in my local Sainsbury's, it's like, this is really pissing me off now. This is not funny.
They're targeting moms, you know,
big time. They're targeting, exactly, and they're making these fizzy drinks. It's a bit like vaping, making them taste like bubble gum. Stop doing that. Stop it. This is bad. And I think I kind of switched to being, I'm not drinking, to why this is wrong. Actually, this is a really big problem. And that was where my mind was at month 8. my creativity was through the roof, and I was really worried about my creativity when I stopped drinking, because I'm a writer, and I'm someone who's always come up. I've done, projects where I've helped create comics and online learning and things like that. And I was really worried, but it was the opposite. And either I had it or I didn't at the end of the day. If I need a drug to be something, it's not actually who I am. So all that was just another excuse. But it was the opposite. I'm more creative, and actually I'm really confident in what I'm putting out there, because I can back it up and I can remember it. But yeah, so month eight was more me looking at alcohol on a much bigger level and looking at the problem that alcohol was in society. I started to look at, unlike you on day one, I started to look at statistics, and looking at the UN figure of 3 million people a year dying due to alcohol related reasons. It made me feel sick, physically sick.
Yeah, I was looking into that stuff too. And I think actually, now that you say that, because I remember doing a whole podcast episode around month 8 about alcohol as a drug, because I never saw it as a drug. And
no, I didn't.
And I was really proud that
with your pasta in a restaurant.
Yeah,
I didn't see it as a drug either.
I mean, I was really proud as a teen growing up through my 20s and everything that I didn't do drugs. So that was really eye-opening for me to realize that alcohol is a drug. But that's,
you are a drug addict.
Right. That is the narrative, though. That's how they keep their sales up, because it's drugs and alcohol. That's how it's always in every sentence, everything that when it's ever
portrayed everywhere.
Drugs and alcohol. It is like it's all under one umbrella. And actually, when I was looking up statistics, alcohol kills more people than all drugs combined. But yet there's always this war on drugs, but we glamorize, pouring another glass of wine with our girlfriend. Like, it's the same damn thing. Society
it's messed up.
And marketing. It's just all, it's all messed up.
And I feel like I've been made fun of. I feel like there's someone up there going, yeah, these people will buy into it. Let's make this the norm. Let's start introducing wine in school productions. People will buy it. Let's sell wine at these ball pits that you send your kids to and throw them in. And then the parents can sit there drinking wine. And it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's so hard to say no that it really made me cross with the people. I saw these wonderful people on Instagram who had the courage and the strength to stop. But I know for every one of them, there's probably 500 people who can't. Right. And it makes me so angry because it's not made easier by these temptations everywhere. It's being sold as something it isn't. And it's
And let's be honest. Let's be honest. Like, how hard is it to sell something that's addictive, right? Like, they've got the easiest job in the world, because they already know that if you have one, you're most likely going to have another, because that one has your brain already wanting another one. So their job is actually pretty darn easy once they're in. I mean, once they're in, they're in. They're a drug dealer. They're a paid. They are a paid.
So right. I've never thought of it like that. Who is your local drug dealer? And then just a picture of your local supermarket. I mean, I remember being in Italy and being handed out. We used to go to these clubs. I used to go to Italy a lot in the summer. And we used to go to these clubs, and these people would come round giving out free packets of cigarettes. And I was like, this is amazing. I was sort of 17 and I'll smoke. Give me. And it's like, it's so cool. They just hand them out. But of course, they were trying to get you addicted to them so that you would then be a lifelong customer. Right. And it's disgusting when you think back. They were targeting the young people in clubs. And it feels like that. And I hadn't remembered that until just now, but it is the way that this is all orchestrated. They know exactly what they're doing. They target specific people, and they don't tell you, listen, I am not saying that I think nobody should drink wine ever. I'm saying or alcohol. I'm saying I don't see there's any benefits to it, but I'm saying it is missold.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Yeah, that was quite a heated month, I think. And I realized as well that I was kind of interested in some capacity to do something around sobriety and alcohol moving forward. And I didn't know what, and I still don't, but I definitely want to keep giving back and keep helping in some way. And that hit me about then, because I was confident in my sobriety and I
Yeah.
knew it was here to stay.
Yeah. And you wanted it for everyone. I mean, that's literally how I feel. Like, I want it for everyone. I want to spread the awareness because once again, I was so unaware. I really was. And sometimes I hate saying that out loud because it makes me sound kind of silly, right? Like, how did you not know that alcohol was a drug? Or how did you not know that you were addicted? But it's really hard when everyone around you is telling you it's okay. Oh, have a drink. You had a bad day. Oh, have a drink. And when you get told that over and over and over, and it's so normal. It's so hard to get out of it. And so I think
Exactly. If someone comes around and says the color green is really dangerous, if you heard that on TV and in the supermarket and everyone you met said green, stay away, green is awful, you can't help, it's in your head that when you look at something green, you'll go danger. It's just human nature, you know? And that's what I feel like was happening. There is an element of brainwashing out there, and it's all for profit, despite the fact that it costs the NHS and other, the medical industries so much, or the medical industries make money on the back of it. But, it costs the NHS so much to look after people because of alcohol related accidents or injuries or diseases. So these people are making money selling it, and then it's everyone else's problem if it goes wrong.
Right.
It's just not good enough, is it?
No.
Month 9. Do you want to go first on this?
Month 9, I started noticing a little bit of like no need for my day count. So that kind of goes along with the confidence. I think day counting in the beginning, because you don't really have anything else, is the thing. Like, I remember just constantly checking my day count because that's what was keeping me in check. But then when you start working through everything and you get more confident, I just remember like there would be times I would go weeks and I'm like, oh shit, what day am I on? Because I'd see someone else on Instagram all excited about their day. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I haven't checked my day count in a while. But it was kind of nice to know that I'm like, but that's a good thing. Like, that means like, I'm not obsessing over my drinking anymore. I'm actually like getting to a point and getting to a really good rhythm. And I also felt really confident in telling people that I don't drink when offered a drink. Like, I learned this new way of, because I used to feel like I had to explain it. And so I finally decided when someone offers me a drink, I'm just going to say I don't drink, instead of saying, oh, I don't drink anymore, or, oh, I quit drinking, 9 months ago. Because I learned when you do that, that kind of opens the door for questions. And if you don't feel like explaining yourself, it depends on the person, but people I don't know very well, I don't feel like I owe them an explanation. And so saying I don't drink never opened that door. Like, they literally were just like, okay, and they moved on to the next person.
They either have to say, did you have a drink problem, which happened to me with a stranger.
Mm.
But apart from that, it's just, and it feels so good. It's like, that's the end of it. I don't drink. That's all I want to say. That's enough.
Yeah.
I feel exactly the same. And that I've written that in my notes actually about feeling so confident. I think another thing for me was the realization of how much I'd been missing in my past life as a drinker. I realized the feelings, the emotions, the sights, the smells, the tastes, the enjoyment of the everyday thing that was more like me getting through it rather than actually enjoying it.
Yes.
And it kind of made me, every day was full of new experiences that I would remember. And it just hit home how I was living before and accepting living that way, and how I was missing out on so much.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that, because I remember thinking I always like had certain hours that I tried to fit everything in, because I then had that rest of that time reserved for drinking. I remember spending more time with my daughter during times that I normally wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So like late afternoon, evening. And I just remember thinking, this is kind of cool that I can, if she comes to me at 7 p.m. and says, let's do a Target run, I can do that.
I can go.
I can go. I can really go. And then
So
you realize that
simple,
you were
isn't
like,
it?
yeah. And then you realize, God, I was like a prisoner to this substance
Yes,
because,
exactly.
and my daughter was suffering because normally I'd be like, ooh, babe, I've been drinking. Like, can we just maybe go tomorrow? And then tomorrow wouldn't happen because I'd feel like crap.
I remember posting a reel from the parking lot at a cinema and saying, I'm here on a Friday night or something,
Yeah.
and I've picked up my kids and their friends, and no one else wants to drive on a Friday, but I can do it. And it's such a small thing, but it's such a big thing.
Yeah.
Such a big thing. And I sat there in this crappy car park with the biggest grin on my face, just
I
going,
know.
this is huge. This is huge. Yeah, you start to realize you cannot go back, and not because you can't go back, because you don't want to.
No.
And I think when you hit that point, it is such a relief because you don't feel like you have to count days. Because I loved day count. I know a lot of people say don't focus on it. I loved it. It was something to focus on in the early days, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what day I'm on now. I know my month is 21st.
I do know my month.
To work it out.
Yeah.
So month 10, my friends started to know me as a sober person. I think that was a big thing. People referred to me as someone who didn't drink. I didn't have to explain it to the people I saw regularly. They had now seen me on a couple of occasions at least. Family, friends, everyone I have who's close to me. By month 10, I'd seen all of those people. So they all knew to expect me to be sober. And that was a real relief, because I just thought people are buying into this new me as well now. It's not just me telling myself and me telling them. They now know, and they're starting to tell other people. People were starting to recommend my Instagram account to friends that were struggling. That made me feel great. And my priorities changed. I started realizing that I could have boundaries in place and that I could prioritize myself, which I had never done in my life. I had always prioritized my kids and my husband, but I'd never put myself up there. Despite saying I am equal, we are all equal in this family, no one's more important, I actually did put myself, because I felt shame a lot. My kids were starting to say, I can't really remember you drinking, Mum. And you think that's amazing. I never thought at this age, they were 12 and 13. I never thought I'd ever get to this point. I thought they'd always remember it. But the fact they knew me as a sober person now made me so happy. So my month 10 was really about other people accepting me, I think.
I feel like I could say the same around that month too, because I think a lot of people were kind of waiting for me to come back.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, she's done it for a while now. She could probably, the people that don't understand it, right? She could probably moderate.
That awful word.
And I just remember there were people like family members and stuff, because our family's 5 hours away, so we don't see them a lot, but they would come in town and just be like, you're still not drinking?
Yeah. Are you still drinking? That would have been a good response,
right?
Wouldn't it?
Are you still? I haven't rubbed off on you yet.
No, and in fact, that's one of my favorite responses is, oh, you don't drink, why? Oh, you do drink, why?
Yeah.
Really? You're the one who should be answering that question, not me.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think we became accepted, didn't we? People, even if we didn't see them, they knew, they'd heard about it. And the fact we were still doing it 10 months later, it's kind of like, okay, they're serious.
Right.
They mean business.
And I've told people too, like people who, maybe were a little sober curious or were asking me about it. And these are people close to me, like family members and close friends. I would say to them, like, if I've gone 10 months without drinking and not going back, it obviously isn't that bad, because you guys know me and know how much I liked to drink and party and get down. And if sobriety wasn't better than that, I would have went back. And so I just, like, that's my way of just saying to them, like, it seriously is better. Like, it really, really is. I know it's scary to think about, but it's almost like I love kind of being the one that's forging the way. Like, I love being the one that's trying it out and maybe setting a really good example for people and being a resource.
You're the proof. You're the walking proof. Yeah. And it's a fine line, isn't it? Because you can walk around and you can say, I'm making this decision for me, make up your own minds. But as soon as you start to say to other people, oh, it's great not drinking, and I don't drink because it's bad for me, then they take it personally, because they say, well, you're telling me something's bad for you and I do it, so you're basically telling me it's bad for me, and you're telling me you disagree, and it opens up a whole can of worms, and it's just awkward. isn't it? You don't know how to deal with it, but you can say, I'm doing this for me, make up your own mind.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've got. And that's something that by around that time, you walk around and think people are noticing. I have not met a single person who's given up drink who by month 10 don't look completely different for the
Oh, I
better.
know.
Have you?
No. I really do look different. Like I look back and it's like my eyes are just bigger and brighter. My face is less
Brighter.
puffy, and
Yeah.
it did change the way I look. But I think this is really how I'm supposed to look, right?
Yeah,
Like
of
this
course
is
it is. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because everyone who drinks regularly looks worse than they should. That just kind of shows you what alcohol does to you.
Mhm.
Putting something into your body shouldn't make you look worse. It shouldn't have that effect. If it does, that's a clear warning that it's not good for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we just ignore it. We take it. We say, I will look 10 years older, puffy, red-faced, bags under my eyes, bloodshot eyes. I'll do that all for that hit of wine.
Coming up on the 1 year, I started having these like thoughts of, wow, because you start forgetting, right? Because, okay, don't need the day count anymore. I'm feeling really good. And alcohol has something in it where like when you're feeling really good, you think you can go back to it and control it. I mean, if you think about how many times, well, at least for me, I would go on a bender and then I would take a few days off, and those few days I would feel really good and feel like, okay, I can drink again. And that kind of is what was happening around month 11 for me. I started having these thoughts of, was it really bad? Was I being a little dramatic? Like, could I maybe just be someone that could have a glass of wine for a celebration every once in a while? Luckily, though, I immediately shut those thoughts down, but I'm human, and I have to be completely honest that they did creep in. Like there was this weird, with confidence came overconfident in controlling alcohol.
See, I never had that. I have never
Mm.
thought about moderation. I've known it's impossible, and I've known I'm either a drinker or I'm not. There's no in between. I don't want to have a glass of wine every Friday night. I want to drink a lot
Right.
every night. So it's just not an option for me. I am one or the other. And in a way, I think that's made it easier for me. And I get messages from people saying they're going to try and moderate again. And it's hard for me because for me, it's like I can't see that happening. But people are different and I can't give that advice. And I find it difficult to answer that. And it's like, well, good luck. I hope it works. Because for me, it's just an absolute 100% no. Because A, I don't think I can do it. And B, I don't want to do it. I didn't drink to have a glass of wine every other night.
Right.
I don't see the point. I'd rather not have any. It's easier. So I never experienced that kind of fake, oh, maybe you could do it. But I know a lot of people do. A lot of people.
Yeah, they talk about how the relapse will usually happen in your mind first.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing all of that before it happened to me. And so I think that helped too, listening to podcasts and reading books and kind of knowing what to expect, because it did prepare me for when those thoughts crossed my own mind. And I also would like give myself a little flashback. Like, remember, you've tried to moderate in the past and it slowly evolves back into heavy drinking. And so it's just like you really do learn how to be more in tune with your thoughts and dissect them better because you are thinking more clearly. It's not to say that these old thoughts don't creep in, but the way we combat them is way better. Like we can really hone in and say, no, we know better. And that's how I handled it. But yeah, it happened.
Well, I actually also did try, and I did 40 days and then I slipped up, and I knew that morning I was going to drink. So I've tried it and it was horrible. And within, days I was just back drinking again. So yeah, 11 was a kind of waiting for 12 for me, I think. I was kind of, just sort of, I felt like I was helping other people, which was a huge benefit, because when you stop needing so much help, you need to, just like when you needed community, I found it. Then when I didn't need as much support, I found that I could give support, and that made me feel as in tune with my sobriety, and it kept me on that,
accountable. Yeah.
You've got to be careful though, because you can replace
Mm.
alcohol addiction, whether you want to call it that or not, with other unhealthy addictions. And you mentioned exercise, but I think social media you've got to be really careful with, because you can give help constantly if that's what you wanted to do. You know, the amount of messages that people receive in this community, it grows and grows and grows. And I love helping people and I would love to give my time to people. But I did get to a point around this time when I felt I am giving up hours of my day. Now, reels take me no time at all to make. Literally, I can make them in a couple of minutes. I have an idea. I see something. I think that would be fun. I click the video round, I record it and I post it. Most of mine are done within 5 minutes. It's the replying to messages. We're starting to eat away at my time with my family or my personal time. And I thought I've got to find a balance with this. These boundaries have to come into place. And I think it's something we're going to talk about on a future episode, because that's a really important thing to realize, that because you've got this security of a community, whether it's AA, whether it's sober Instagram, whether it's a group that you've joined, you've got to be careful that you don't become so reliant on it that you're scared of the real world.
Right.
You've got to keep growing. You've managed to step away from something that is toxic and all consuming, but you don't want to jump into something else that you feel scared of walking away from. You know, I made a few friendships on there that turned really bad really quickly, and it made me question my judgment. And I've never done that before. And I suddenly realized I don't actually know any of these people. And I almost deleted my account a couple of times, but I thought, well, I'm not going to do that because I like helping other people. I'm not going to do that just because of a few negative experiences in a whole year.
Right.
But still, it was I'm going to step a bit back from this. And you know, I'm on Instagram every day and I post a couple of times a day, but that's my therapy as well.
It takes a lot of energy to stay sober, and then you got to protect that, you know?
You do. And I'm not a professional either. So there's, you know, I need to just be careful. While I would like to help everyone, I can't. It's just, I have a full-time job and a family and friends and life going on. So that's an important, but boundaries is something that I think people who drink a lot are very hazy about boundaries. They struggle with them. It's something that you learn when you get sober, that how important they are, because once you feel more confident, you feel like you can put those in place. Right. Month 12, the big 1 year.
The big 1 year. Didn't feel that big.
Did it not? Was it a bit of an anticlimax for you?
It very much was. But I think also I had to sit and reflect, because what a big year it was, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, I talk about how I accomplished more in that year than I've ever accomplished in my whole life. And when you look at it that way, it's mind-blowing. And I'm not talking like, oh, just in what, like all areas of my life, I did so much work in 1 year that if alcohol was still present, I'd still be working on just one area. You know, like alcohol really slows down the process of learning and challenging yourself, because it's constantly there to give you permission to check out.
Yeah.
And there's also something about maybe knowing you lost a lot of time that makes you like hit the ground running that first year. I don't know.
The time.
Yeah.
No, I think. And it's also exciting. You get excited about life again. You get that childlike curiosity back, and you get time for yourself, which is quite addictive when you realize I haven't been doing this ever. I haven't given myself enough credit. I haven't loved myself enough. I haven't looked after myself enough. And when you start doing that, you realize how good it makes you feel. And it's, you know, you think, this is fantastic. What do I want next? What do I want to achieve? What do I want to get out of life? Where do I want to go? And it's wonderful, but it's tiring, all of this stuff. And our bodies are also physically have gone through a huge change. But I think at 1 year, the main thing is that people don't worry about you anymore. You don't have this label as a big drinker anymore. That's gone. There's other people that have stepped in, sadly, and taken its place. The focus is on them. You know, you are no longer that person who's associated with alcohol. Even if you're not associated with sobriety, even if that's not what you're known for because you don't want to talk about it, you're not known as a drinker. And all of those tags that come along and those labels have gone. People rely on you. They don't worry about you when you go out for a drink and they know you're going to come back 4 hours later. People feel more comfortable with you. The people who love you are so much happier because you're reliable and you're safe. And that's huge, you know, because those people are the people we care most about. And if we were making them worried, that's a horrible thing to be responsible for.
I think when you start your journey, if you look forward, you think 1 year, it's just going to be like this huge event.
Never going to happen.
Well, or maybe never going to happen, but,
Yeah.
or you think like, I think what I'm saying is I thought I was going to feel different. Like I thought there was going to be a big feeling around 1 year, but I think what happened is because it was a slow evolvement. What I felt at 1 year is exactly what I needed to feel at 1 year, but because it didn't just like, I woke up that morning and felt everything, because everything like piled on, like the confidence and all of this, like progressed up into the year. That's why
you
it
felt
kind of
365 segments of the year celebration.
Yeah. So
I think you're right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay. And then you're like, now what? You've gone through every season, every day of a year, experienced pretty much everything. I mean, you just, you're like, now what?
Now what?
What's year 2 gonna look like? Like, what am
That's the exciting. That to me is the most exciting question ever to have in your head. Now what? Because anything is the answer.
Possibilities are
Anything
endless.
is possible. Instead of going, here we go again, get through it, let's do it, let's get through it, here we go again. You're thinking, now what do I want to do? Because there are options, there are possibilities, there are openings, there are paths not taken, there are things I can do that I couldn't do before because of my health, because of finances. Everything opens up. And now what is such an exciting phrase when you are sober, because you actually can think about it and then go out and do it, rather than sit there going, I wish I had this, I wish I could do this. You're thinking, what shall I do? Not what could I do?
Right. And because you've already done it, that monkey's off your back, right? Like you've already experienced so much of these firsts. So now the second time you've got that layer gone, that layer of like, can I do this? So then you go into that event or whatever it may be, even more confident. Like I'm getting ready to go on that same trip that I went on, you know, at 5 months. I'm getting ready to go on that same exact trip. And I'm even more excited because last year I was more nervous. I didn't know what to expect. Now this year I know what to expect. And so it's like, whoo, I can't wait. I'm so excited. So I think that's what's the best thing about year 2. So here's to year 2, Kate. And what I'm excited about is obviously year 2, we're doing this podcast together.
Yeah.
And
year 2 involves you.
Yes.
And
now that we're all caught up.
I know. We'll have to do this again at the end of the second year and see what's changed. But it's honestly, I am so excited, and I feel like I've really found my footing. I know who I am. I still have work to do on my interests and my exercise and my boundaries. But you know what? I'm so happy. I can't remember a time that I was happy with who I am.
Right.
And, you know, to say that in your 40s is incredible, because you start to think, oh, well, you're kind of established by then. Things can't get better. You can't really look 10 years younger or feel like life is just beginning when you're in your 40s, but you can. And that is just incredible.
Yeah, I remind myself all the time, I'm headed into the second half of my life, if you think of it that way. And it's going to be the best half. Like the first half was good, but this half is going to be amazing. And trying to implement all these new things, I have to remind myself I have the second half of my life to learn all these new skills, and there's no rush, and to just honestly be present and enjoy every moment, whether it's a fail or whether it's a huge accomplishment. There's so much to learn from both. And that's kind of where my mind is now in comparison to where it was when I was a drinker. And that's just, for me, that's just huge.
I couldn't have said that better myself. I completely agree. And I'm so excited that we're going to do lots of stuff together. Cheers, Steph.
Bye, Kate.
Thank you for listening. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, we're just two women from opposite sides of the pond wanting to bring awareness around the negative effects of alcohol. We are not licensed therapists or doctors. If alcohol is causing any mental or physical health issues, please seek professional help.
Please be sure to give us a follow so you don't miss future episodes. If you think our podcast could help someone you know, please be sure to share it. Also, leaving a 5-star review will help the Sober Effect reach more people like you.
The music for this show was produced and recorded by Pearl and Thumbelina Jim of the wonderful Charm Jar Music. More information can be found in our show notes.